Welcome to Conscious Dominance, a DSRX studio production. These weekly conversations explore how to approach mindful leadership and inner dominance within the powerful container of committed, intentional relationships. Join Eric as he invites new dialogues, sharing practical insights for how the craft of consciousness opens the aperture to love, serve, and connect with unwavering presence.
Hello, welcome. This is Eric, alone today from the other side. What I mean by that is I'm speaking having just gone through an emotional trigger and an emotional storm. And no matter how much I do my practices, I still get triggered and I still get flushed. And as I did inventory and dissected the situation, what occurred with Rachael, it's very much a textbook display of a theme specifically around safety versus embarrassment. I feel like men, we don't understand how much, I know I don't, and I've spoken to other men, I don't know how much women deal with issues around safety far more than I could ever recognize or realize. And I don't think women realize how much we men deal with being embarrassed. Men are primarily guided by a fear of embarrassment. Women are primarily guided by concern for safety. These fundamental differences create massive misunderstandings. The thing about men that we don't realize is how much women are guided by safety on everything that they do. And for men, this makes no sense as they look around and the situation may appear to be very safe. Women see our competence as an equation with safety. And the situation that occurred that I want to speak to just briefly was that I was very triggered by Rachael's emotional response, which was in many ways very concerned about a number of things in our life, which was completely appropriate when looked at from the lens of not feeling safe. And I was feeling triggered by her reaction to it. And we were driving on a long road trip, and I got in a stew around it and let it just spiral me into a bad state. And I had to do some real dissection to recognize that I was essentially embarrassed and she was essentially feeling unsafe. And so the fundamental difference between us is really what comes down to. This also has to do in many ways with competence. Many women, Rachael, for example, we had this interesting thing from our past where there was one day as I was seeing and watching her do so many things with such competence, and she seemed like she wasn't enjoying doing it. I said, "What do you mean you don't enjoy doing that thing?" And she said to me, "No, I just do it because I need to." And I said, "Well, you're really good at it. Don't you enjoy doing something that you're good at?" And she looked at me very puzzled, like, "What are you talking about?" And I thought to myself, everything that I do that I have competence in, I enjoy doing. The mere fact that I'm good at it gives me pleasure in doing it. Whereas for her, so much of what she was doing was because no one else was doing it. And so she was doing it so she felt safe. And so her motivation was safety. My motivation for doing something was competence, to feel competent and to feel like I was able to contribute and be there. So much of men, I know this for myself, when I avoid doing something, I'm avoiding being seen as incompetent. I'm avoiding doing it because in so doing, I will bring out the fact that I don't know how to do it and it could be embarrassing. And so if we can realize that for men, everything that I do, I'm either increasing or decreasing my sense of being embarrassed or my shame around it. And often men don't show up to things because they feel incompetent. And the anger that I've expressed is often just a mask for me feeling embarrassed or feeling shame. And women often become good at things just because they need to become good at it, because it's a task that needs to be done and they need to feel safe and they do it. Men, I assume that because they're doing it, they enjoy doing it, so let them do it. And this gap has caused, I think, many a disagreement in the field between men and women. And one of the things that's interesting with Rachael, she had this statement that she realized. She said that many of her clients, and these are very competent, very successful women, and the vast majority of the things that they do in their life that they're competent at, they don't actually enjoy doing them. They're just doing them out of the necessity of life. And that was revelatory to me, because I felt like, why do something unless you enjoy doing it or want to get good at it and then can enjoy doing it? And she said, wouldn't that be nice? She said this notion that I assumed that if you do something, you enjoy doing it. And I have the privilege of choosing whether or not I do things based upon whether or not I want to do them. And she said, as a woman, she doesn't have that choice. And she shows up to things not only for herself and a feeling of safety, but if she recognizes that other people may be unsafe in this situation, she will show up to meet their needs as well. So safety drives the skill acquisition for women. Everything that I do, is it increasing or decreasing my sense of safety? This contrast in approaches is well said by men avoid incompetence to prevent embarrassment. Women embrace competence to ensure safety. And it makes for a fundamental difference and conflict in the relationship and much misunderstanding. I had a situation the other day with a friend of mine. There was a snowstorm and it was icy. And I went outside. I had cleared a path and I had boots on and I'm secure. I was pre-paved the situation, put salt down. She was dropping off her kids. I've had 2 kids before. I know the drill in the storm. I was going to go out to the car, get those kids, get one at a time, bring them in. So I had a plan, a whole mode. But as I stood out there, recognized she started getting out of the car. And I said to her, I said, hey, no, I got this. I told her the situation. She still didn't trust that I got it. I said, well, at least let me get one of the children. So I got one of the children. She got the other child. I said, wait, just hold on here. I could tell her shoes weren't right. She didn't even have a jacket on, the whole situation. I said, just wait. And I had to be forceful with her. I said, just wait, I got this. I took the kid in quickly and then the other kid and brought him in. And it was in that moment, though, that I recognized a couple things. I recognized that I had to be super clear with her. I had to be super confident with her. I had to be super competent with her. And I had to have an awareness of the context and a compassion for the context, all in that moment to take over the situation. And as I relayed that story to Rachael, I said, it seemed like she was in crisis. And I said, there was no reason to be crisis. We were in a driveway. There was no cars anywhere. It wasn't that situation where it seemed like a crisis to me. And she said, many women are in crisis all of the time. Their nervous system is in crisis. And for them to show up with their kids and in the hustle and the bustle. And so I said, kind of like being at an emergency room. And so I came up with this metaphor in that moment where I said, women exist in a perpetual state of emergency response. And I thought, that's interesting. If they're in a state of crisis all the time, then they're coming to me in that crisis. I need to be like an emergency room doctor. What are the qualities of an emergency room doctor? Well, first of all, they're competent. You know that they've got the drill. They got their act together. They're also quiet. They don't react. They're not expressive back. They assess the situation. They deal with the situation, and they don't push back. They don't yell at the other person when they're going through it. So there are many things where this emergency room doctor and this emergency room metaphor was like, oh, this is very much like what it is to be a conscious dominant, is to be an emergency room doctor. And there's a certain sense of clarity. Again, going back to those C words that I was using, clarity, there's compassion or an awareness of the situation, there's competence, and there's confidence. In crisis, if you have a car accident or something happens and someone comes onto the scene, they need to immediately prove their competence. They need to be situationally aware. They need to be compassionate. Well, it's the same situation for dealing with women at all situations. And the degree to which everyday things register as crisis for women, and I would include moments with men when they are energetically off, they make it into a crisis. So if a man is not holding space for a woman or is emotionally insecure or is volatile, he could create a crisis in her system. Then she will shut down or she won't trust. And it's literally her not feeling safety. And so I feel like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is relevant in this situation where, yes, you can provide protection from physical harm. You can provide shelter. You can provide food. You can provide health security. You can provide money. You can provide environmental safety. You can provide all of these things as a man. But as we keep clicking through them, and you can have provisioning of the long term, financial, there's also social safety. There's also emotional safety. She needs to feel like you've got her back in social situations. She needs to feel like you're there with her, that you're able to read the cues. She needs to be able to express herself and her feelings without judgment, without it affecting me. If she gets into a space where she's feeling a storm and it impacts me, she doesn't feel safe in expressing her emotions. And also, if those things that she expressed, I later use them for manipulation, those are other ways that she doesn't feel safe emotionally. This is also in vulnerable moments. Like, for example, if you're going dancing and you're with your girl and your woman is starting to dance a little freakishly and you kind of do something subtly, and she can feel that her dancing triggers you and you're uncomfortable, that might shut her down for years. If she loves you and she's surrendered to you, she's going to close down part of herself because of your reaction in that split-second moment, if you're not alert to it. And this is where all of these things become really important for us to pay attention to. It's not just the logical things like the safety for physical harm or the home safety or the money safety, but it's also these social situations and these emotional situations that can be really important. When I say compassion and I say the word situational awareness, I think another C word that's really important for the situation is context. And I think that's actually a big part of where women feel like they are doing things. And if you come in trying to solve the problem too quickly and you're not aware of the context, it doesn't matter if you're not seeing the field. And so that's where your attempt at trying to solve a problem or help in a situation is not received by her. It's perhaps that you don't have the whole context. You don't have the whole story. You don't know what else is going on in this situation. And see, she feels unsafe in your lack of awareness of the full context of the moment of the situation. And this is why it's so important for part of the safety, you have to encourage her to be able to express the full range of her experience. And this is why it's also important for you to not take all of her expression as a mandate that you're going to go do something or act on all of it. It's all part of the information, and it's your capacity to discern that is necessary in those situations. So one of the big things about the emotional safety that I speak about is it's primary, it's sort of downstream of all of the other safety. Because if she doesn't feel safe to express unfiltered expression, which includes emotional storm, you will never get the full context of the situation. And so emotional safety becomes actually not down the line on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it actually gets bumped up to the top if you're dealing with a feminine being, because she's going to be allowing you, giving you information about all those other needs. If she doesn't feel safe to show her fears around money, which was my situation, she didn't feel fully free to reveal the insecurities that she was feeling around our financial situation. And then I got triggered and I got embarrassed. And so we kind of went down a whole spiral. I started telling my stories that in my head about how incompetent I am or how embarrassed I was at not being able to provide sufficiently for her. And so because she didn't feel safe to have told me through much of our relationship because of my reaction, then I wasn't able to address the full gravity of the situation. And this is where her voice and dealing with her emotional safety is primary for her feeling safe, and also for her feeling safe around the finances, around the home, around every other aspect of the relationship. She needs to be able to have voice around this. The feminine needs a space to experience the full range of her emotions. Her emotions and storm-like energy need to be able to flow freely. And it is my job and my masculine role to be unshakable presence during these emotional storms, and not try to fix them right in the moment, not try to get defensive when it's directed at me, and for sure not shaming her for even having those emotions. And it's also key for me that I have an open heart and I'm present in it. Going back to our pillars, when I talk about taking full responsibility and I talk about having presence and having awareness, all this is next layer deep on all of these situations. It's so important for her to be able to grieve, for her to be able to cry, for her to be able to go through the full range of her feelings. If she's not able to feel fully in all these places, she's not going to feel safe. And all of the surrendering, all of the submission, all of the sexual fun, everything is on the other side of her feeling safe. It is so important for me as a man to witness her without judgment. I need to be able to just receive her expression, all of it, as love. Something Andrew talks so beautifully about. Can I receive the slings and arrows of her discontent and malcontent and even her criticism or her just whatever's coming? Can that be love? The fact that she's telling me means that she believes in me in the relationship. She's got hope. She actually thinks that you can do something about it. She actually is in the relationship with you. So when your woman's upset, can you rewrite the script in your head to say, oh, I'm not a failure, but can you rewrite it in your head to actually be like, oh shit, she believes in me. She thinks that I can hold her. She thinks that we got something because I can do this. And the key though is to take it all in and hold it without trying to fix it in the moment. Because what it comes off like when you're trying to fix it in the moment is you actually are trying to fix her emotional turbulence rather than what's behind it. And you're not honoring the fact that whatever's happening, she may feel unsafe. And so when the emotional safety is violated, what happens? She goes somewhere else. She goes somewhere else. It's like the emergency room. If you had a doctor in the emergency room that was yelling at you, you wouldn't go back to the emergency room. You go somewhere else for that emotional safety. Or you might just say, I'm not hurt. I'm not actually hurt. I got this. And so she bottles up her emotions. That's why women have these diseases and all these problems nowadays that are rampant. They have unexpressed emotions. Their nervous system is in fight or flight all the fucking time. And then they have emotional stuff and there's no way to process it. And they don't feel safe. And there's no place in the relationship to feel safe. And so when they have a situation where something's off, what's the response so often of men is either shut down or yell, right? Or indifference. But can the man actually sit there and hold her in that turbulence? If she can bring her fullness to it and he can hold that, she feels safe. That's safety. That's safety. Can we rethink this? That when she's upset, think in our head, how is she feeling unsafe? And then as a woman, for women, can we think in their head, how is he feeling embarrassed? The long-term consequence of emotional unsafety is they're leaving you. Like really, or it's a drying up. It's like nature too. What happens when you're unsafe? Think about nature. If nature's unsafe, it's literally lying fallow. And so I think it's important to think of this metaphorically, that when we are in a situation where a woman feels unsafe, it's like the dirt and everything not growing. Nature doesn't want to grow anymore. And it's getting neglected. And if you don't take care of nature, it doesn't grow. And then if you get mad at nature, or you're like forcing it to grow, or you throw some medicine at her, or some chemicals at her, it parallels to nature. How do you help nature grow? You leave it alone and you tend it and you love it and you witness it and you observe it and you come in as it needs to and you let it naturally do its thing over time through tending, through love, through care, and through taking away the things that are harmful. This is what I speak about when I speak about biodynamics. What do you do with Earth if you want it to be really healthy? You don't do anything to it for a year. You actually literally observe it. It's similar to women. Give it a moment. Give her a moment. Don't try to fix her. Hold her. Allow her to be as she is. It's okay. Let her be in it. And if you can really hold her in that for that moment, she naturally can find her way through that, but she feels safe to be there. The emotional work is the soil for everything else. It is truly the soil of all communication. If she doesn't feel safe emotionally, she doesn't feel safe to communicate, you don't have a soil for everything that comes out of this. I think of the 4 elements going back, I'm going to kind of review here, but it's competence. You have to have competence. The competence over time is really important. And because otherwise she's going to be doing the things that you need to relieve tasks from her. You need to figure out how life can be dealt with, and you got to have confidence. You have to have confidence in yourself, and she needs to feel like she can trust you. And the opposite of embarrassment really is confidence. And so she can feel that you're actually leaning into this, even though you're struggling with something. And then can you have contextual awareness of the situation? And then can you be communicating all that clearly? I think this is all. Yes, it is a lot to ask of men. But unless you can do all 4 of these things, you're not really going to have a woman surrendering to you over time. Again, this is the safety embarrassment framework for conflicts. Recognize that the core issues during a lot of relationship conflicts have to do because a woman feels unsafe and because a man is embarrassed. And if you can go back to those issues and ask yourself, how can I, as a man, create more safety for her? And understand that often her withdrawal or her lashing out, either way, is a safety response to something where she's feeling unsafe. You kind of peel back the layers. There's something in her space, in her field, where she's feeling unsafe. Don't take it personally. Going back to the 4 agreements, can you not take it personally? Can you not make any assumptions? And then, of course, do your best with this, and then move through with your values and your impeccability with that. So this is a way of addressing these safety concerns, and try to assess that before you start making it about you. Remember the ER metaphor. You might have your issues. The way she brought it to you, you might not like it. There might be other stuff in the situation, but we both can't be like the ER doctor. If he's got a problem, he's got to go to another place and get that solved. He can't come to the person who's coming into the emergency room to get that solved. Otherwise, you're going to have a situation. And that's what a lot of relationships are. She's coming in looking to you to be the ER doctor, and you're coming back at her and say, I don't like the way you brought that to me, or you're cranky about it, or why aren't you having sex with me, or what's wrong with this situation? And he's like, and then I'll solve your problem if you could actually like get these things figured out. And she's like, I'm in a fucking fight or flight. Like, I'm unsafe in this situation, and you're talking about fucking sex and all this other shit. And see, this is part of the issue, is like, can we solve the safety issues, help her to feel safe, don't make it worse. Going back to this, if I can, as a man, recognize where am I feeling shame or embarrassment, and can I also recognize that my anger is often masking my embarrassment? And so if I could just identify that and just name that, that actually is in the link below, there's going to be a link, and it's going to have my 10 reactive resets. Put your email, you get it for free. And one of them for the 10 reactive resets is naming the emotions that you're going through. And for men, if you can just name the fact that you're not actually angry, like beneath the surface, you're actually just embarrassed. You're feeling shame. You feel incompetent. You feel weak. And if you can recognize that in yourself and hold yourself in that, and just be there with yourself and reparent yourself and go feel embarrassed and feel all of those things. Again, in the reactive reset, take a walk, get away. She's looking to you to be the ER doctor. It's not a time for you to be embarrassed. It's not a time for you to make it about you. It's a time for you to take care of your shit so you can come to her and be there. And guess what? As soon as she feels safe, you can talk about being whatever you want to talk about. She's going to be there for you. Recognize the polarity that we've talked about in this situation and how it can be very depolarizing. So the best thing for you to do as a man is literally to leave, take care of your stuff, find help, get support, and break these cycles that keep happening. I think another way to do this for both of you is to recognize that the man, you also have needs for safety. And for her, she may also be embarrassed. We have an inner masculine and an inner feminine. And so I think it's helpful to have conversations and times and opportunities to discuss these things and not be embarrassed about even talking about the fact that we're embarrassed or about shame. Or can we create situations and opportunities so not in the heat of the moment, I'm feeling so embarrassed, I feel so weak, I'm just a weak man. If you can actually talk about that when you're sober and you're not upset, it has a great way of diffusing it when actually the emotions are high. So if you can let it out in other times, then it's actually not going to come out when she needs you to be more rock solid. I know from experience because I've done it both ways. Another part of safety is you can provide safety as a woman to a man by not embarrassing him and not making him feel shame. And that actually provides him feeling safe. And so kind of the safe feeds back on itself. And I think it's a really important cycle. Can we not embarrass him, not shame him? Then he's going to be more motivated to provide safety for you and hold you and not shame you. And it goes back and forth. In closure today, one of the things that's really important for me to speak about, it's for men and women and everybody, is to feel through this with an open heart. I think open heart is such the massive balm. It is the way that we navigate challenging situations. If we can be receiving the other and keep our heart open, if we can be communicating to the other about situations that are where we feel unsafe or we're reflecting about something and we can keep our heart open as we're communicating, so what that things get depolarized? So what that things might be challenging or people are feeling fear or they're feeling embarrassed or they're feeling unsafe. We all feel embarrassed. We all feel unsafe. It's part of being human. But can we be with each other with an open heart in the expression of this and then work from that place, acknowledging these things and then moving forward with more contextual awareness, with more situational awareness, with more clarity, with more confidence, with more competence, and with more of a place for everyone to feel vigorous and to be able to move forward in the relationship dynamic in the way that best suits all of the above. And that's really comes down to the definition of love. And when everyone's being themselves and feeling safe, the polarity just naturally happens. I think the polarity can be very natural when everyone's in their right energy and feeling healed and healthy and alive. Thanks for listening today. It's revelatory for me to live through this and really see this really clearly. And I hope this was helpful. If you would like to further speak with me, I am available. And also please remember to sign up for the reactive reset. I think that would be helpful for anybody. Thank you.